Live on my second YouTube channel. Hi, this is William Ramsey. Welcome to William Ramsey Investigates. On tonight's show, I have a very special two guests who I came across on social media. I think it was either Gab or BitChute, but the title of their social media is the Occult Rejects, and it caught my eye. And I've listened to a couple hours of their stories about being in these groups that I've studied myself, but had not had the opportunity to really talk with people who are in. And they're New York Patriot and Lux, who one was in the OTO and the other is in the Order of the Golden Dawn. So that was one of Crowley's first orders, and then the OTO is a German group, but Crowley became the head in 1925. But we're going to talk to them, or I'm going to talk to them and just kind of ask them questions and tell their story. So, New York Patriot and Lux, are you there?
Yep, I'm here.
What's going on?
Awesome. Well, thanks for agreeing to the interview. For people, can you tell your stories? I mean, I think it's going to be curious just to kind of tell your stories consecutively, but maybe you can start, New York Patriot, and talk about how you actually got into the OTO, how you heard about it, and what it was like kind of joining the group. And you're in New York, right? So did you ever come across it like Jim Wasserman? I think he just passed away. But maybe if you know any of these leading lights too, if you could talk about that.
I know who he is. I mean, of course, you're going to know who he is if you're in the OTO. Unfortunately, no, I've never met the guy before he passed away.
Gotcha.
He definitely seemed to be an interesting character.
Yeah, he was in that huge magic group in the 70s. But yeah, so how did you find out about the OTO?
Well, I had basically, I was big into conspiracies, a while ago for years. I mean, I'm probably going back to like 2010. I started getting into this stuff, and I did start to believe that, these types of secret societies were real and that they did have an influence, possibly, or control, kind of things of what's going on in the world. So I started, going down the rabbit hole and looking into them, and I started thinking, as silly as this sounds, if I had gotten into it myself, would I be able to maybe keep myself out of it in a way? And I just found it to be very interesting, and I thought that I definitely believed it to be real, and it seemed like anything associated with Crowley seemed to be pretty in depth, very structured, and just, regardless of who he was and some of the sick stuff he did, I do think he still was, in a way, an occult genius. So I figured that maybe his orders might have had a little bit more of structure and knowledge to them.
So did you shop around to see which one you were going to join, and then OTO was the right path for you?
I was torn between, well, there was three of them, the AA, the Astra Magentum, the OTO, or the Golden Dawn. The AA was very serious. If you want to try to join, you got to read tons and tons of books and then take this ridiculous test even to become a student. And usually, that's a real secret society, because you don't know really anybody. You're dealing with somebody on a computer and just see people when you go to initiation. So I thought that was a little too much for me. There was no Golden Dawn around by me, and even just looking at, how the way that they practice, I'm sure Lux might be able to verify. It also looks like it would be very expensive with all the stuff that they use and all the stuff that you got to buy and wear. It just was, I was like, I don't know if I'm willing to dump tons of money into this too, So I found out there was actually an OTO lodge, and there was two of them in New York. So
interesting. They call them oases or whatever.
It depends on the size. I think camp is smallest, then there's an oasis, and then there's a lodge. And
Gotcha.
Even depending on the size, also depends on what initiations they can go up to too. A lodge can go hard in initiations than the other one. And then
you reached out to their lodge. How big is their lodge in New York City? How many members do you know?
I mean, the ones in New York, I could probably safely say was, people that went religiously, probably 20 to 30 people maybe, but they might have a total 50 or 75 active members.
Gotcha. And how did that first meeting go for you? How did you reach out to them? How did you start?
I can only speak for the OTO. I guess I can't speak for other ones, but it's very, very. First off, the website will show you if you go onto the website, it will show you exactly where they are. They all have some sort of like practically some sort of social media thing. Yeah, I mean, they all have like an email or a Facebook page. Some of them have
Right.
YouTube or whatever. And I just emailed them. No, I think I went to the website. I saw something that was coming up, and I left an email, and I contacted them saying I was interested to go into the Gnostic Mass. And then I think they told me like to get in touch with them possibly the day of or the day before, and then they sent me directions, and the address that I was going to. That was very just weird to me and very shady. I just thought, I don't know, that weirded me out. But I mean, it did go well. I mean, I went there and, still alive.
So you went to your first Gnostic Mass. That was kind of your first meeting with the
Yeah, that was
OTO.
my first, yeah, for sure, yeah.
So did they have the whole Book of the Law in the center with the 7 candles and everything like that?
Well, they have, I mean, it's a huge, gigantic altar that the Book of the Law is up on. I mean, there's way more than 7 candles on there. They have that. They have I guess you call it a pentacle that that they're gonna put the cake of light on. They have the cup for the wine. I mean, there's a few things on the altar, but yeah, they do keep the Book of the Law up there.
Gotcha. And so that was kind of your intro. What was the first degree that you had to pass to become an OTO member?
Well, if you do a Minerval, you're kind of like an honored guest. At that point, you can start going to closed meetings, which can be very different. First degree will make you a full member, though.
Gotcha. So you went through up at least into the first degree. Is that correct?
Yes, yeah.
What books did they make you kind of associate with at the beginning? What readings?
Believe it or not, I mean, it's very different from how, like, I'm sure that Buck's tell you about his experience in the Golden Dawn. Well, when you do like an initiation, they will give you paperwork after the fact, and they'll reference books in there. They'll give you a list, but it's not very structured in how you would think that, like, you're gonna have, like, you're not being tested on things. You don't get, like, you can go to classes and stuff, and then they'll have that, and they'll suggest these are the books that I used to do the class. I mean, but they don't really have anything down on you that you need to do. Believe it or not, you could easily go there for years and not really much of anything.
Wow, interesting.
Yeah,
so they
it's
just like
actually
having
very surprising.
Interesting. Did
Very
you have a
surprising.
self-study or anything like that? Did you practice magic at home?
Yeah, yeah, no, I did everything. I mean, they'll even say that too. They'll say, with secret societies, the real magic is done on their own. I mean, the thing that maybe they're good for is if you wanted to meet other people like-minded and maybe meet people that might know more than you do, so maybe you can learn something from them.
Right.
But the real magic's really done on your own, in my opinion.
Did you have results from practicing magic? Did you have results that you were satisfied with?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Okay,
I mean, there was ones I was satisfied with, maybe ones that I wasn't even satisfied with, that maybe were like a little too much or just wasn't it. But yeah, I've definitely gotten results, and I definitely by far am convinced that it's real. There's no
real.
doubt in my mind. Yeah, for sure.
Did you have any contact, like entity contact or anything like that while you were practicing magic? Are you still practicing magic?
No, I haven't. I haven't really, except for meditations. I have not really. I think one I have done like a banishing.
Gotcha.
Maybe a month ago, but besides that, I have not, believe it or not, probably not done anything in almost a year.
Wow. Gotcha. Right, the lesser banishing rituals.
The last few experiences I had kind of like shook me a little bit to my core, so I kind of just, basically wimped out.
So you were getting
this gangster.
Right. So you were kind of getting drawn in then, huh? Farther and farther.
Yeah. I mean, not so much with the OTO itself, but with magic and ceremonial magic, yeah, for sure. I was getting pretty.
Gotcha. So did you have magic in theory and practice and follow those rituals?
Yeah. I'm going to tell you right now, believe it or not, I would probably consider one of the worst OTO members because I don't prescribe to everything that Crowley says and wrote. I'm not one of those. I just can't do it. I'm not going to put this dude up on a pedestal.
Gotcha. Okay, and so Lux, if you can join in, can you talk about how you found out about the Golden Dawn and what led you to join?
Sure. So I had always more or less been interested in esoteric Christianity. I was really interested in a lot of the old Hebrew books and literature. And I would say that it got to a point where I was really curious about magic because of some of the things that I was finding in some of, certain books that I was reading. And so I was always right from the get-go, I was very pointed that there was no way I was going to join a order that I perceived to be on, the dark side of things. And I made that very sort of clear, both to myself and to the different groups that I was sort of reaching out to try to find the right fit. And of course, I had heard all of the, Crowley left the Golden Dawn, and there's no more influence, and they sort of more or less got rid of him and wiped their hands clean of everything. So I thought, well, hey, that might be a really good order to give a shot, because I was very against anything to do with Crowley at the time.
Gotcha.
So I had already been practicing certain rituals, spells, meditation, yoga, a whole bunch of different things, even before I started doing the Golden Dawn initiation, or even sending in paperwork to have it considered. So,
what part of the country are you in?
I'm on the East Coast.
East Coast. So, but they have there still are active kind of actual real Golden Dawn followers and temples here in the States. Is that correct?
There is, and there's definitely a lot of cloudiness around certain orders, because one Golden Dawn might have the name, but it's not necessarily the same lineage. There are different Golden Dawns that say that there's truly the authentic one, but they all sort of claim that. So you have a lot of different types of Golden Dawns, or I would say even Rosicrucian orders, which are directly associated with Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn.
Right. I mean, there's this, Amorc or whatever it is. There's one out here in California, in San Jose. But
Yeah.
I think they have some of the ideas of Golden Dawn. But you actually got initiated into the Golden Dawn. Is that correct?
Yes.
And can you talk a little bit about that initiation?
So it was about a year build up. There was a lot of questions and hoops that I sort of had to go through, which is a bit different than New York Patriots' story, because they were very strict as far as letting anyone know their location, or things like that. And I had actually lived close to an OTO temple at the time, and I was, again, even upon contacting Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn, I had said, hey, this is something that I'm really not interested in. So if this is something that's going to sort of come up down the line, I would appreciate the heads up now, because I definitely don't want to study anything with Crowley. And I was doing, stuff like angel magic, or banishing rituals and things. And so there was a bunch of paperwork that I had to fill out. They screened me pretty heavily. And there was about, I would say, like a 7 to 8 month vetting process.
Wow.
And New York Patriots, right, because it was pretty expensive. And,
Wow.
we're talking about, your robes and books and a whole bunch of different things that you have to purchase before you even start the initiation. And, if you don't have the money, they sort of say, well, find it. So they don't give too much financial assistance to people. They really just want you to kind of go out, and if this is something you're really determined to do, then, you're going to go ahead and find the resources to do it. So I would say after about that 8-month process, I decided to travel to the temple in order to get initiated, which was some ways away from my house. So it was quite a travel. And before I was even doing the initiation, I did have to meet a bunch of different people from the temple, sit down, and they would, ask me a bunch of questions. And yeah, so that was, I guess I could talk a little bit the first time that I had met them.
Mm-hmm.
They had set up a location where I knew about it probably about an hour before, before we met. And I get in there and I'm sort of sitting, and this was at a local restaurant that they had. And I was there with my partner at the time, and we didn't see anybody. So after about 20 minutes had gone by, they give me a phone call. And sure enough, they had actually already been sitting there in the restaurant. And they were just sort of like scouting, watching to make sure that I was who I said I was and everything. And so we sit down, and there were 2 males and a female. And the one thing that immediately stuck out to me was that they had just these massive rings on their fingers. And I'm talking Super Bowl size rings. And I just, this was immediately the first thing that I noticed. And there was certainly an energy that was there at the time. I guess you could say maybe even an intimidating energy. And so we began to have a conversation about what I could expect for initiation, because it was going to be happening, not long after we had got done meeting everyone at the restaurant. And I remember that I was sitting there with my partner, and I don't want to use any bad language, but one of the first things that one of the members of the Golden Dawn had said to me and my partner at the time was, "Oh, don't worry, this is not when you in the
Sodomize you, right? Sodomize
yeah." And of course, oh, ha ha ha! Everyone's joking. Oh my goodness, funny joke, because everybody who goes to enter a secret society, I think, always has those preconceived ideas as to what they can expect and what they've heard, and you really don't know too much before initiation. So immediately, I was pretty nervous about that because that was one of the first things that they had said. But the guy who had said it, he ended up being my mentor. And, he's a charming guy, and so I just kind of more or less just brushed it off. But that I remember it always sort of hit me, in that extra sense where you go, huh, that was weird. That's not something you say to somebody the first time that you meet them.
Right. Not a good sign. But you kind of made you a little uneasy, but they actually blindfolded you, right? Took you somewhere?
They did. So I was, at the time I was staying at a hotel with my partner, and we went our separate ways, and she went back to where we were staying, and I went with the Golden Dawn. And yeah, I was blindfolded. I could not, I did not know where I was going. I remember that car drive was, I had a lot of anxiety, and at the time I was not feeling well at all. I had come down with just the nastiest cold. And it was hard to breathe under a mask and everything. So we eventually get there to the temple, and I immediately realized that it was not a temple in the traditional sense, but it was actually a residence.
Gotcha.
So
can you hold your mic, like if you've got the wire, can you just hold it, because it's rubbing up against your shirt or something?
Okay, is that a little bit better?
It sounds better now, yeah.
Okay.
But so you got somewhere, but you were like a very serious kind of student of the Golden Dawn, correct? I mean, you read their books and were practicing their magic.
Yeah, I would say I'm more of a really analytical person. I thrive really well in a structured environment. So knowing that the Golden Dawn was more of a structured environment, I did gravitate more towards that. But yeah, I was pretty serious in it. I mean, for that whole year up until you even get initiated, you're practicing magic daily, and you're doing a lot of stuff in that day. So it takes up a good amount of your time. It's a large investment of your time, for sure.
And when you were practicing and getting in, did you, like New York Patriot, did you find results came from the magical practices?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And it was almost immediate.
Yeah.
Interesting. So,
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of these people say it works. And so, what were you when you're practicing magic? What is the intent? What is the goal or response you're trying to get through the actual practice of magic with a K?
It would depend on sort of what the desire for the ritual is. If you're doing, banishing rituals, you're trying to, pretty much set up a perimeter that's going to surround you through the day. That's going to block any type of, psychic attacks or worldly um, influences or astrological influences that might otherwise affect you. But doing certain rituals, you're creating that barrier around yourself so that those things become nullified. Just I would do a whole bunch of different types of rituals, I guess, but of course never anything black or gray magic in any sense.
Gotcha. Do you guys mind if I ask you questions when we're done? I mean, I'm already getting questions coming in, but so when you're practicing, you guys both together, okay, cool. But you kind of had being outside. Once you're inside, you kind of have a different perspective. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So maybe some disillusionment, or did you feel like, oh, wait, this is? I mean, what kind of things struck out at you?
You want to go first?
What's that?
Anyone? I mean,
wanna
like
go
when
first?
one of you guys can talk.
Yeah. As far as things that stuck out to me as strange, or
Just like being a part of a secret society. I mean, you're in kind
right.
of secret societies that you have initiated to. Was there, I mean, I think listening to your podcast, you're talking about like you have discernment moments or instincts, something
Mm-hmm.
bothers you.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, there would just be things that rubbed me the wrong way. I guess um, I would do a lot of research, and I wanted to advance pretty quickly because um, I didn't want to take the long road of where I took it half serious. I mean, I really delved in deep and fast, and the reason why I did that was so that I could advance. And I remember that I began to do research on things that I was told more or less were above my grade and not to worry about those things at all. And that was something a bit strange because when I would reach out to get certain questions answered that I thought that were pretty important, I was more or less told, no. Um, and I remember specific times I would more or less get lashed for contacting people unless it was in a very, very specific, structured way.
Gotcha.
And
What?
just general people that I would see time and time again. I just discernment. There was something off. I just started to. I thought that maybe that this group was connected to other groups that I was not being told about, and had done some research. Just because I'm way too curious for my own good. And doing the research, I began to notice in some of my books and curriculums that were given to me from the Golden Dawn, I began to see other references to other orders and other groups that initially I had been told they were not associated with the Golden Dawn, or even specifically with this specific branch.
Gotcha. So you talked. I think
So
you talked about the Astrum Argentum, right? Is that
right. So
yeah.
right, and in Golden Dawn, you have an outer order and you have an inner order. And so your outer order would be the Golden Dawn, but then your inner order, I was told was a Rosicrucian order, and which was eventually found out to be the AA. Yeah.
Oh, interesting. So in your Golden Dawn, the AA was the internal order. Is that correct?
There are a bunch of different. There are a bunch of other internal orders. Yeah, that's correct.
Interesting. So the Hermetic order started. Go ahead.
Imagine we're told that they more or less stand alone, but again, they don't. I'm convinced now, especially after the conversations that I had with other people in my order, we would use Masonic temples all the time to do different meetings or rituals, and I was always led to believe prior that the Masons and Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn were not connected. And I remember finding that out, and I thought, whoa, that's definitely strange, because I had always thought that they were totally independent of each other. There's a lot more connectedness than I think people might think.
Right. And did you find people within your order were also members of other orders, not just the Golden Dawn, but that they kind of group hopped perhaps?
Yeah, to some extent.
Gotcha. And I mean, so those original, Golden Dawn rituals were from the 19th century, but they just kind of disseminated themselves all through the OTO, the AA, through Rigardi, all these other people.
Yeah.
And so do you think that you were practicing the original Golden Dawn tracts materials?
I can't say for absolutely sure, because I was always told that there are older versions, and I was even told things in secret, as far as just by oral tradition of what we disseminate in books is not the actual banishing rituals, or this is not the actual. There's something else you have to add here, and there's something you have to add here, and so there's more to the rituals than sort of what is widely distributed. There's more versions that you're only told about once you actually are in the order.
Gotcha. And
Yeah,
New
like
York
he
Patriot.
even- yeah.
Go ahead, please.
I was going to say, even the way that he does his, or has been told that to do the banishing ritual, the pentagrams, even different than the way I do it.
Oh, interesting.
So yeah, I found that to be interesting when he told me.
And when you were in the OTO, what was that like? What was it like being in?
To tell you the truth, I mean, at first I was just kind of like surprised, because I just figured, like, a secret society just would have been a little different, a little bit more structured. It just seemed like, I guess, a lot of people that I guess just thought it was kind of like an edgy thing. The things though that really started to make me question stuff. One, they seemed to push a certain ideology. I mean, I don't want to start to make it political, but they definitely by far push liberal, leftist thinking. And to be totally honest with you, that in my opinion, that's almost the complete opposite of what the OTO should have stood for. I mean, it almost even kind of goes completely against it, in my opinion, what the phrase "do what thou wilt shall be the whole law, love the law, love and the will." Even the liberal mind, in my opinion, is actually completely opposite of that. It's the farthest thing from it. So I started to, question and wonder, why is that, why is it actually becoming filled with people with the mindset that's the complete opposite of why you should be here? And I don't think it's if that was happening by accident, in my opinion, the secret, the OTO would crumble, because people would leave and it would have lost what it was supposed to be. I think in the sense that it's actually on purpose.
Oh, interesting. When you were in the OTO,
they want you're supposed to be a very focused, strong-minded, and strong-willed person, in their opinion. To do your will, you have to know who you are, and you're supposed to do what what your objective is, and don't let, outside things trigger you or change you or pull you off your course. But like, as soon as you put on the TV and Trump opens up their mouth, 90% of the orders on the floor, like having a conniption. So I didn't understand, and then when you start promoting Antifa and BLM, I have to draw the line there.
Fascinating. So you found the group to be very political.
The members themselves can be, and the funny thing is, it seems like that seems to be the big clique at some of the ones that I've gone to, has seen that the people of that type of mindset seem to make up more of the place. Seems to be like the cool kid, and the ones that tend to be doing the masses and the classes more and have more positions in the order tend to be of those types of people.
And did you, when
And
you
then,
were
like,
in
as
the...
you start getting higher up, there's certain things that I know to be true that I'm just not willing to do to take an initiation. It's just beyond me. So I knew I would never get to a certain degree regardless, and I would just
How
stop
far
going.
along the degree path did you go?
Well, see, that's unfortunately stay anonymous. Believe it or not, once you get to the second degree, I think that puts you in like the top 30% percentile. So if I was to like even say that or anything above that, it would really start to narrow it down to like who I could be. Believe it or not.
Understood. No worries.
But I can tell you sure in the fifth degree you do have to carve a chest, cross into your chest, and I am not down for that. So I knew I was going to go.
So you have to carve a cross in your chest?
You're going to carve one, yes, into the middle of your chest. It's in the ritual, and I've seen people with it after. So I'm not making this up
No, well, Crowley branded all of his Scarlet Women.
Sometimes some people will be like, this guy's just freestyling and making something up. Like, I know I've seen a hunch. It happens.
Was that ritual in the Secret Rituals of the OTO, that book that was released?
Yes.
Gotcha. And what did you find it within the OTO that they had internal documents or like an oral, like only spoken tradition as well?
Yeah, there's sometimes, depending on who was doing certain classes, that might have been a little bit higher up. Like, going past the fifth for sure. Sometimes they would throw like little things in there that seemed to be maybe a little off than would normally read. Some people even admitted that, when you get to a certain degree, there is certain paperwork that you are privy to.
Right. Right, because I've heard the OTO has its own internal documents that the public's never seen.
Oh yeah, they do for sure. Yeah.
Okay, gotcha. And maybe you guys can just kind of talk about how you got maybe disillusioned or wanted to get out of the group. How did that process begin and end for you, New York Patriot?
For me, believe it or not, like I had said, plus I'm sure COVID probably made things a lot easier because they had opened up the temple. So if you wanted to do anything, it's by Zoom. But honestly, I've had friends of mine that I knew that neither stopped going or just completely moved too. You just stop going. They're not going to question you. I'm sure maybe if you were very high up, then they'd be like, oh, what's up with that? But, I'm sure people like from the fifth degree or lower, like, you disappeared and nobody's going to question anything.
And did you, was there in your order?
If you don't want to be associated with them at all, ever, even having your name on their stuff, you have to contact the Grand Lodge, and they'll send you paperwork. It could take a few months, and then sign it and send it back, and they remove you.
Gotcha. And was there like a squabbles within the OTO between members of the order or different versions or anything like that? Did you ever hear the name McMurtry or any of these other characters?
Oh yeah.
Okay, so you know that. Okay.
What was one weird is that the one thing that they did not like James Wasserman around where I was at. I could tell you that right now.
Interesting.
He stood for rights, and he wasn't a leftist, so of course they didn't like him.
Gotcha. I didn't know that.
Yeah,
but he was wrote
very
books
big on the Second Amendment.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
No, he was very active. So was McMurtry. I suppose that McMurtry wanted to claim the OTO as being gifted to him from Crowley, and that he was the what's the Arab term? He was the caliphate, head of the caliphate,
I know
right?
What you're talking about, yeah.
So,
I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
I don't know if that was something that you guys, the real OTO, the fake OTO, I don't know if that was something that you ever heard of.
I've never really heard them say anything bad about McMurtry.
Gotcha. And or do you consider yourself part of the larger magical groups or just the OTO?
Oh no, I only considered myself a member of the
OTO.
OTO.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And then Lux, how did you kind of take the steps to leave the Golden Dawn? Still there? Let me let's unmute that. There you go. You have to unmute. There you go. Nice.
Oh, you're there. There you go.
Yeah, I'm here.
So the reason why I ended up, I started to, like I said, see things in paperwork where a lot of other groups were referenced, and I just got really curious about it. And, I began to look the websites up for these groups that were referenced, and I noticed that the longer that I was in the Golden Dawn, it seemed as though there was like a convergent point where it now just, it's like it slowly turned into Thelema. And I remember taking a look at some of the websites that, these groups that were referenced in some of my curriculums as I got further up. And I would look on these websites and I would see something totally different than what I was being taught. It was like a 180. And anytime that I was asking questions about it, as far as, well, this doesn't make sense, or this doesn't make sense, or I was just told, don't ask those questions, and I would just be given a very vague response. And because of that, I was not willing to continue down a road where I wasn't getting the proper answers, even at this point. So I knew that I was being misled. I knew that I was being lied to, or, maybe misled at least. Again, because I had said things very early on about, not being interested in Thelema. So that's what kind of just was the last straw, and I decided that I was done.
Did you officially try to revoke your involvement, or did you try to get paperwork to say you're out of it?
Yeah, so it's a long process. I mean, they really try to push you to just take a sabbatical and to, don't, it's too much. Just, we understand that you're stressed. Take some time off. And I had initially sort of thought that could be a possibility, but then just had said no and requested my paperwork back. So,
gotcha. And then, so looking back after you're leaving, I mean, are you still kind of practicing? Are you still involved in magic, or what are your thoughts after coming out of the Golden Dawn?
I think to the general public, we're kind of disillusioned. Just the general public, we're disillusioned as to what magic is. A lot of things are magic, and I think that we all sort of practice magic in our own certain ways. It's just that we have a different definition for what we call magic, from meditation to prayer, setting the intention or the will, communicating with God or whatever it is that you call him or her or whatever it is that you practice. And I definitely am still very invested into the occult, which I would say is just hidden systems that are directly being kept from people, so that certain groups, certain people, they can, as long as they have this information and the general public doesn't, they're able to manipulate us in ways that are just unbelievable. So they have a very very good understanding as to the psychological aspects of society and man. And a large majority of magic or the occult, I would say, is more about the total understanding of the psyche.
The psyche, right? And how to manipulate. I mean, your tagline, the tagline for both of you guys is "You're fed up and disgusted how the human race is being manipulated by magic." Do you think because of your magical experience, you're more attuned to spotting that?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, by far.
I mean,
because yeah, in some ways, magic is manipulation, right? You're trying to manipulate the outside world or people. Almost all the magical orders have something where the people are mundane. They're a herd. Crowley called them a herd. You know, so
the slave shall serve is what he said.
Right, the slave shall serve, exactly. So, and you guys have also kind of looked into other things on your channel too, right? So, was it Pet Goat and also Pizzagate and things like that?
Oh yeah. Yep.
And can you?
Yeah,
well, I mean,
sure.
what are your? I mean, if you have like an overarching view, like I guess that, what is it? What's your view of how magic's being used today? Towards people.
Psychologically, I mean, psychologically, I mean, I think it was, it really dawned on me, and I wanted to really kind of get into this stuff and getting those stuff out once everything started happening with like COVID and George Floyd and with stuff with Antifa, because I felt like, or even, I mean, I hate again to make it political, but even when I saw the logo for the Democrat Party, I was just like, yo, this stuff is just in our faces. Like, this is just ridiculous at the point. Like, people are just literally being controlled like they're like a video game. You know, like they're just, and the whole thing is the wild stuff too is that it's almost as if they're being magicians who pull rabbits out of hats. It's almost as magic in that sense, but they're just using media and like the leftist ideology to like really, pull the covers over people's eyes and just make them see what they want them to see or believe or, feel. It's just messes amount of fear, in my opinion, that they are putting out there to get the reaction that they want and then the end result that they want.
Yeah, they do it over and over.
In my opinion, part of it, not to get into conspiracy stuff, I think COVID's a part of it. I also believe by far a BLM and Antifa, by far. I mean, in my opinion, BLM, I mean, before they took it down, you used to be able to go to their website and read what we believe. I mean, they were Marxists, they were witches.
Yeah.
I mean, when they're chanting people's names, that's a mantra. Most people may not realize that they honestly think that they're raising the energy of the dead person to use. Right. And that stuff's being played on TV and people are watching it and have no idea, because when you take things out of context, you take a 10-second clip out of a 3-minute video, people are going to only believe what you want them to see. So, I mean, the media and everybody's basically old plans of it.
Right.
In my opinion. And I just think it's coming at people from all directions. I think to push us in a slave state or globalist agenda.
Interesting. And what are your thoughts on this?
I would agree with a lot of that. And, I would even have people who, while I was in the Golden Dawn, who would talk about how, it does go up. Other groups, you're going to take your next step and you're going to take your next step. And eventually, you're going to get into some of the more inner orders and the more inner orders. And the inner orders of a lot, I would say maybe all of these groups, I mean, it is a giant tree. And the majority of the branches are all connecting. We're told that the groups don't interact or work together or talk or communicate or have a plan. But from my experience, that's not the case. And I would hear people in, especially some of the higher ups in the order would joke about, the Illuminati and things like this. And all I'm going to say is that I know that the people who I was around were people just like you and me. You would never suspect these.
Did we lose them?
I think so.
People, occultists or prize groups, that when you go in, that they're all black and that everyone's, got, some metal music or something playing, and that everyone looks like, they're gothic or something. And that is not the way that it is. The people that I were around were predominant figures in the community, very well respected, and I would say had a significant amount of power just in their jobs, their employment.
Yeah, you said there's teachers, doctors, lawyers, things like that.
Oh, everything. I mean, as much
for
as
sure.
you can.
I've met a lot of those doctors and lawyers for sure. I mean, teachers.
Yeah, and I would say, to me, magic, the way that I liken it is electricity. If you went back 200 years ago and you told people about electricity, they would think that you were crazy or a kook. But, just like electricity can be used to shock someone and to hurt them very badly. But electricity can also be used to light light bulbs and other things like that. And I think that a majority of the magical systems are hidden information or lost information that is specifically kept hidden now so that it can be used to manipulate the masses. And I'm not talking about banishing rituals and things like that. I'm talking about the understanding of color, the significance of how color affects behavior, sounds, how certain sounds will influence your brain to make you feel certain things or bring out certain behavior. And so a lot of these systems are deployed against people, and they're just none the wiser. They just are just sort of going along life, and they, I don't ever want to make it seem like this giant grand conspiracy of, but that everyone at the top of the level everyone's involved. But I mean, it's a significant amount of people, and I would say that there is a definite plan. And I think
do you think that a cult plan is like what would be described as the New World Order, like a one world government? Do you think that's the common denominator in these occult groups?
Yeah, because again, there are some groups that, and it's funny because, New York Patriot and I talk about this all the time. It's like, so for each order, for each group, it's almost like they cast a very wide net, okay? Because New York Patriot, him and I are very, very similar, but we have different personality types. And so, of course, they sort of cast this net because they know that certain people will gravitate towards certain groups. I'm more analytical. I was more curious about the curriculum-based type of learning, so I gravitated towards Golden Dawn. Other people gravitate towards Masons. And so they basically have different groups out that will fit your personality trait. You go into them. And so it's a way to sort of suck up all the people who would otherwise do that research sort of maybe on their own and other things. But they all do feed up into, I would say, a much more organized, I would say a more consolidated inner core of people. And it seems as though it gets darker the further that you advance. It seems the darker it goes. There's just a general different tone to things. So
once you're in, then you start learning more and more. So it seems like you guys, the farther you got up, the more uncomfortable you got. Would you agree with that?
Yeah.
Yeah,
sure,
I would. Yeah.
Sure. I mean, especially like, even like when you start getting like results, I mean, that could also kind of even like make you start questioning like, what's really going on too.
Right.
For me.
And which one of the groups, like a handful of them, went to the Temple of Set? Was that true? What was I remember listening to that. You had somebody leave like the OTO and join the Temple of Set. Is that correct?
Yeah. Well, for most people I know, if they're pretty serious with the OTO, they always seem to be like either involved with something else, or either be in the AA, or they might be in like some kind of oh my God, Coven or the Temple of Set was another one we're in. You'll get people who are in multiple Freemasons,
multiple groups, right?
Freemasons.
Right, because that's what Crowley recommended, was to join all the groups, right? So did you think that there's kind of like an interlocking directorate of occultists? Some of these guys who are at the top are running multiple groups or involved. Do you ever see anything like that?
There was definitely people I knew that were actually big in all three. They were high up, or higher up than the average in the AA, the Temple of Set, and the OTO. There's a few people like that, which I found rather interesting. I mean, I don't know if that's because they were there for such a long time or what.
Gotcha. And you guys are still putting content out on BitChute, right? So people can find your stuff on BitChute, and you're on Gab too, right?
Yeah, we have BitChute, YouTube, and we have a Gab TV channel.
Gotcha. And it's the Occult Rejects. Jack Pine's asking you this question. Can you explain what watchtowers are and how they're used in ritual? Are you familiar with that term?
Yeah. I mean, I've never really. I think so. I'd be better off with that. I know, like, that's attempted to be used in like Wicca rituals and maybe Old Dawn one, but I never really got into them. But basically, I think it's like calling the element, whatever you consider to be like the elemental being or that elemental idea from the brain. That's kind of what you're calling.
Yeah, and there's multiple watchtowers that guard certain perimeters of time and space.
Gotcha.
An entity specifically that occupies that space.
So there's an entity that watches that's in the watchtower. Is that it? So it's associated with an entity.
Yeah, well, it can be a very amorphous type of term. Yeah, just like New York Patriot said, a force, a certain attribute that represents northwest, east, south, things like that. So.
Yeah, I mean, you could be calling like gnomes, or you could call the element of earth, or I mean, it could be. It's normally just like, to me, it was sometimes in some of these rituals, like something like that could all just be for you to create a mental picture in your mind, making sure what you're doing.
Right.
So having like this tower and you actually picturing it and picturing what you're trying to call, and it is just kind of like a link to the mind and on what you're focusing on.
Gotcha. Is there anything else you guys would like to add before we wrap it up? Anything you'd like to tell the audience?
I mean, the reason why we started the podcast basically was to let people know what's going on, trying to point out occultism. Like we've said, we do believe it's around us everywhere. And in my opinion, it's almost kind of like the fabric on what the world has been constructed with. The reason we have it is because we don't want to see other people getting trapped up in it. And I guess to maybe give just maybe a word of advice is to not believe everything you see, especially on the TV. Try to think logically. Don't think with feelings and fear, because that's basically what they're going to try to do. And sometimes go with your first instinct if it seems to be the more positive reaction, and don't be so full of ego. And I think that's a way to try to stay out of their trap a little at least.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
I'm just trying to give some good advice.
I appreciate it. On the podcast too, one thing that we're really focused on is that, governmental agencies that have a lot of money have been researching these subjects. So you don't have to take our word for it. You don't have to believe us when we talk about this stuff. Come over to our podcast, see how there have been scientific, analytical, studies that have been done about these systems. And enough to the fact that certain government agencies take them as literal fact, and they are using them. They're actually deploying them on a daily basis, and they've been researching it for decades. And as long as they sort of have that information and we don't, we're always going to be able to be manipulated or sort of pushed down a certain path. I mean, right now you can see it. It's everywhere. The whole of society it's almost split into two different factions or groups of people.
Right.
And, that division is on purpose. I mean, you have the left and you have the right. And, it's very ironic that both of the attributes of the political left and the political right represent the attributes of, the hemispheres of the brain. Right. And they're playing all of us.
For real.
Yeah. Yeah. And they're playing all of us off of each other, and they're doing a great job of it because, everyone's so divided. And what we want to do is we want to decipher the language, right? We want to be able to show you what's around so that people, realize the situation that they're in. Because if we don't realize the situation that we're in, we're not going to be able to get out. And that's, for humanity to be free and to not have, these secret people who are watching over everything and sort of setting the plan that they want. That's not fair. And something else we're really trying to do is we want to build a community of people who have been in secret societies before, and who are looking for resources when they get out, because some of these societies can really take a whole grip over your entire life. I'm talking financial control, so that they own things that you that are yours, that you lose your, and maybe New York Patriot can talk to that about that a little bit, but you lose a lot of your autonomy. You lose your ability to get out because they slowly take more things from you. And so we're trying to build a community of people who are former secret society members that can give each other help, whether that is, just someone to listen to, because it's a unique type of situation when you come out. And sometimes you can feel really alone. And we just want to build a community that sort of is the anti-occult, or maybe you could say, deciphering the occult, because it's a big untapped amount of people out there that have come out and they just don't know what to do.
Yeah, well, you could have a very wide pool if you include Scientology, Moonies, all these other people.
Exactly. Yep.
So it's a lot of people. So I came across you on BitChute, but you have a podcast. Is it available on iTunes under the Occult Rejects?
Spotify,
Or is it on Spotify?
For some reason.
Okay.
The problem also with the shows that we've done recently, a lot of them you needed a visual, so there was really no point in putting up the audio. We did finally put up a 4th episode. Now, I don't know if that's why Anchor hasn't put it on to Apple yet, but we are on Spotify and Anchor.
Spotify and Anchor, gotcha.
Because
I
might end up putting us on Spreaker, and then that will put us on Apple. I thought about that.
That's what I use, Spreaker too. But so you would prefer people to listen to you there, or not go to BitChute, or what's your preferred spot to listen to?
Except for maybe like 4 of our videos, the rest of them you're going to need to really probably watch it to get anything out of it. So I would suggest going to watch it on BitChute. At least you can close the app or close the screen and still listen. You can look at it the whole time. But we do have but very limited on the podcast right now.
Gotcha. If people are trying to reach out to you
on Rumble.
Gotcha. If people are trying to reach out to you, what's the best way to contact you?
I would say either on Gab or our email, honestly.
Yeah, gotcha. So Gab.
The only problem we see with Gab, we have to. I don't think it's messaging on Gab, which sucks. So I mean, if you see us post somewhere, we have our own group. It's very small. I mean, I guess you can tag us and say what's up, or I mean, you can email us.
Mm-hmm.
That's how I reach out to you.
The Occult Rejects at Proton.
The Occult Rejects at Proton.net. Protonmail.com.
That's it.
All right, guys. Well, I think that I really appreciate you taking the time to talk about your experiences, and hopefully people will reach out to you if they have any questions. But really appreciate it. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
All right, take care.
Thank you, man.
Have a good weekend.
Yeah, thank you.
Bye-bye. All right, bye-bye.